Call this meeting to order. Trustee Dave, would you lead us in prayer tonight?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and many blessings of life. Father, as we go about the college's business, would you give us wisdom? Would you show us those things that we need to address? Help us in every way. Father, I ask that you would continue to use this college in the way that it is meant to be, and that's to reach out to the base. That, Father, that we would help ensure that those youngsters would get the training and the education to better themselves coming in the future. We ask these things in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Do you have anybody here for public comments? We're going to get right to the heart of the matter. We all have had the budget, proposed budget sent to you, and we're going to discuss it some tonight. David?
All right. What I'm going to do is just summarize for the board kind of where we're at, knowing that we still have property taxes to settle in on and so forth. But the budget that you have in your book, we're looking at preliminary property tax revenue of about $3.5 million increase. That's based on the current tax rate, and as y'all know the drill, we'll go through all that as they certify property taxes to us to see where we come out on that. Hopefully not to drill down into a whole lot of detail on the new state funding formula, but we are, based on the last projection, we're looking at $1,977,000 more in revenue from the previous biennium. The only other comment is it won't be a 2-year deal as it has been in the past. This is going to be year to year. And this number here only includes performance. We do not have any base funding based on the new funding formula, mainly because of high property taxes and high tuition in the way that they're calculating those minuses to the base amount. Tuition fees I've left mainly unchanged. We do have about $200,000 in new ATI fees in nursing. Okay. But we left that at $12,249,000. Salaries, and this is all detailed in these sections in your book. What we're recommending is a COLA adjustment to the pay scales of 4.5% and movement down the scale of 1%. With a minimum of $3,000. That's similar to what the state of Texas has done, and it helps the lower end employees as well. Operation and maintenance, we were up 5.29%. The only thing I will mention that's a little concerning to me, I had our insurance agent meet with the board budget committee last Tuesday. The numbers that she's given us now, and I will say that Trustee Monk and I, we talked about to bid this out, and she's coming on August 9th with some bid numbers. But the number she's given us right now is an increase of $280,000. And I have requested the detail of that increase. But again, this is not the bids, quotes, or anything like that. I've been pushing them hard for a budget number, and I'm going to let her explain on the 9th the status of the insurance industry. I'm sure we've all experienced it to different degrees, but I was a little surprised, to be quite honest with you. The capital reserve funding is $2.242 million. That's the number of 3.77% of revenue that we kind of established a couple of years ago. And as we sit here today, contingency funding, and that number will change as expenses or revenue change, but we're at $732,005. And so I'm sure everybody's had the book. We can speak, whatever y'all want to talk about. I don't know if the board budget committee had any comments.
Does anybody have any questions? The total expenses before contingency capital increased 5.92% last year, and for this coming year. Anybody have any comments?
They don't have insurance. What's that measure again? You said a $280,000 increase
Over our last year's.
from the what? I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but
Well, I just got this number like last week, but we paid, 500 and some odd $1,000 last year. What we're getting this year preliminarily is 800 and something thousand. And you know, we've had this conversation about, there's been many factors. One was I kept the coverage at 80% until we lost our blanket coverage and all the buildings had to be insured. That was a factor in the past. They jumped the rate on us, if y'all recall that, last year. Brenda didn't go into a lot of detail on the board budget committee that I really wanted her to. I'm telling her on August 9th, we gotta know, we gotta know what the other bidders are saying. She's doing a pretty wide market of 8 to 12 carriers. But she didn't give us any detail about, you know, is it the rate? Or are they scared of reinsurance? I don't have that detail.
you're talking about 50% increase.
Close, yeah.
And last year we had a significant increase.
That's what we did.
Because last year we launched her, we got out in front of it, gets the numbers to look at her and not just bring it to the table, but.
Yeah, I've been pushing it for several months. What she's saying is, before May or 120 days out before it renews, hardly anybody will talk to you. Apparently, we're still getting a lot of rejections for various reasons. I haven't got those reasons yet. You know, the 15 passenger vans are always a part of that, as they always have been. But I was quite frankly a little surprised. I mean, I expected an increase because of the cost of living. But I don't have the detail of why, and I've asked for that as soon as I can get it. And I'll be happy to send that out to the board.
Really like that. I mean, it's crazy, you know, in 1 year.
That was the word that went through my mind.
And it's not claims related, because this is mainly our property damage and.
Yeah, the property and casualty, that was of the coverage.
P&C side.
Yeah,
What we're talking about, really.
that's where almost all the increases happen. Law enforcement, you know, board, cyber, none of that stuff was out of the ordinary.
So she thinks going and bidding them out is going to be a lot cheaper, hopefully, than what we have in the co-op.
Well, she didn't say that. I think we're gonna get a lot of no bids. But she was still collating, so. I'm hopeful, Steve. I did talk to some of my peers, and one of the things that they have done, while Jason and I were at the TAC meeting, they do use agents, and what they have done is split their coverage up. This company has property, this person has vehicles. Now, long term, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It would probably put us into a yearly, you know, running it through the mill to try to rebid the 6 companies. But that is something people have done. But another thing I've asked for is I want to know what the other peak members, that are a member of this co-op, I want to see what increases they got. But if it's across the board, they got to have a reason.
We didn't have any losses that we really, any claims that we did at all, did we?
I don't know that, the only thing we've ever really filed on that I remember since I've been here is the cyber liability. But nothing to do with property and casualty that I'm aware of.
I do know that some of the properties that I've involved in, they quoted over 50% increase, and they really didn't want the exposure. And I don't understand that, but I know it's industry wide. It's not just colleges.
I think part of that, you know, is the fact that the acceleration in replacement costs, and they're looking at those numbers, and taking a perceived depreciation, not straight line, but what's perceived to be. And now that number has risen so much, and I would guess probably that our various combination of insured risk is probably dramatically higher than what it would have been, 3 or 5 years ago. Sorry, so that's probably part of it. That still seems like a huge amount.
So I'm trying to find out if we just had our stuff appraised, so in my opinion, it shouldn't be that a 1-year value increase. As y'all recall, they did an audit of our buildings, I think it was last year. And so those values shouldn't have needed much adjustment, in my opinion. I'm waiting to see, if it's replacement cost and they ran the rate up trying to cover that.
Well, given what you just said, if I recall it now, they did update our numbers, and that was part of the justification to the increase last year. So those replacement values come up. So you're correct. It hasn't changed that much in the last 12.
Not 50%.
No, no.
But I want to point that out so that nobody was surprised. I was, but anyway.
Morrison, you have anything to add?
No, if you recall in the meeting, she talked about the amount of damage over the last year that the state of Texas faced was leading to a lot of increases and things of that nature. But all in all, I think if you're looking at the budget that will be presented, I think it's a very flat, neutral budget from last year. We do receive, the increase from the state into the revenues as part of it. Of course, that's coming from the new funding formula, which I'll talk briefly about from the TAC update. But I think it's a very wise approach to our budget and an investment in college as we get ready to talk about in August.
Dr. Morrison, I do know that it appears that you plugged in a huge increase under the area of capital outlay, et cetera. And I'm assuming that relates to some needed building replacement things and more along the lines of maintenance of et cetera. Is that correct?
Well, we're gonna be faced over the next year with a lot of maintenance issues. I don't necessarily like to use the word deferred maintenance. We're addressing it as we can for the critical maintenance and infrastructure.
Well, I'm just referring to 3.3 million in this line item in my business up there compared to last year. It's about 2.9.
David,
Are you talking about major repairs?
well, that's a shift from what's supposed to be in each category. From
Repair.
That's capital. So you haven't changed that other than much.
Right, yeah, right. That down there is basically what we're putting in savings.
Yeah.
And as you recall, I think when we agreed
Well,
to go back.
if you look there's a disconnect between last year. If you look at 22, 23 projected, and you're seeing 2.9, and I was picking up that number comparing it to 3.3.
Oh, okay.
You see where
Well,
we're going?
yeah, I guess I would. The contingency and the cap reserve, when you look at projected, those aren't really expenses. And so under my projected, I have projected 0 expenses. That's just a budget holder.
I see that. That's where I was seeing the stand now.
Sorry, I was looking at 3 million. Oh my God.
Dr. Morrison, if I may, and then I'm done comments on the budget, and I respect and appreciate I'm sure it amounted to quite a number of hours. The budget committee has been working with us. I appreciate all that. Yeah, we still find ourselves proud to be able to only announce a 6.5% increase in spending. And I guess where I'm going, I have no objection to spending. I'm grateful that the appraisal districts and the state, wherever the heck it's all coming from, keeps pouring in. It's certainly not from what we're generating internally with tuition and the usual things that produce an increase. But I guess what I'm clamoring for and have for a while is a real means of measuring. It always frustrated me to sit down on the budget committee and you're just deciding what to spend and you're not measuring against anything. We used to have a real hookup between the budget and contact hours, extra credit hours, some things that we all understood. And now, you know, with the powers that be, have decided it was wiser to reshuffle that deck of cards and call it outcomes. Looks like the outcome is that we may get more money than we got before. But that's beside the point. I guess what I'm yearning for, and you know, wonder if you can kind of address, because I know you didn't come from a big spender background, is can we hope for, expect to see, or try to get a serious discussion about how we measure where we've been and where we're trying to go as it relates to spending? Because too much of what we're doing here is just, we need some more out of the taxpayer's pocket. We need the appraisal district to raise these values, give us another 2.5. We need outcomes to give us another 1.9 billion or so. And then we find a place to plug it in. And again, I don't mind spending, but I think our charge here is to correlate that to what the rest of the whole world does, and that is based on how do we perform. Is that reasonable? Is that something that you would have a thought toward to say, here's a real measure where our history has taken us, and here's our, whatever you want to call it, you know, per unit cost, so to speak. Some things being more expensive than others, and that's okay. But just something where you know what you've done, rather than just saying, well, we're just happy it didn't go up anymore, it did.
Well, I think just with the new funding formula, you're going to see those things because you're going to see a plateauing of the local contribution, which in the view of the eyes is the primary source of our fund. Eyes of the state is the primary source of our funding. That's the whole tier funding and the elimination of base funding from the state because of what our local contributors provide. So it basically zeroes us out there. So the primary source of our funding is local. And in my belief, what I'm seeing, you know, coming into the budget process kind of later in the cycle is we're going to see a kind of a balance, flattening of our local contributions as things settles down, inflation and stuff. And you'll be able to, it'll be directly, more increases will be directly tied to the outcomes and the programs that we have that get the higher marks when it comes to high demand certificates, level 1s, level 2, associate degrees, you know, and also just completion and then transfer for, because there's so many variables that are now involved in the funding formula. It's always going to be a headcount driven, but it's not so much headcount driven when it's a credit. You could actually see a reduction in headcount, but if you're producing and completing more students, you're going to be rewarded through the funding formula. And so I think you'll see our budget planning will be based on what we are graduating and how those students are hitting the transfer or the workforce. And that will be, as we move forward, I would estimate our increases will be tied to that because at some point, property tax is going to plateau. It's going to flatten out. And that's going to be kind of my estimation, a flatline funding source. Then you're going to have to base it, since the state's not going to be really contributing because of the base tier calculation zeroing out. Our growth will have to come from having the right programs, including the students, and utilizing the funding formula how it's supposed to be utilized as far as producing the workforce for Texas.
And that's great. And I appreciate your response on that. I think you're committed to it. We just need something where we can say, here's what we've actually accomplished versus just, well, we know we've accomplished spending more money.
Well, it's gonna be produced every year by the state of Texas, published. These are the outcomes of this
Well,
institution.
I understand there's a provision, there's a pass for a while where you get a transition period, kind of work through it.
There is,
I don't know. I
No.
just read that.
now, there is no transition.
Okay.
Rules
Good.
will be voted on August 22nd,
Wonderful.
and it will be fully in place. So there is no transition.
Very good.
It's gonna be different, but it's gonna force us as institutions to make sure we're not just chasing a head count, we're actually doing our job to complete students. And make sure our programs are aligned in the right manner that helps students meet the needs of the job forces, be it right to work or transfer.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, but the budget, in a sense, controlling those is, if you control costs for costs from last year to this year, I would say it's as flat as you can be budget with the inflation we face.
I would say this, that throughout the discussion of the budget, we looked at, we emphasized in our discussions, we'd like to learn more about is a program like, for example, a workforce program. What did we make money or not? I mean, what was our income? In simple terms, is it producing, even if we lose money, I just want to know what it is. And I think you're going to see more of that as we move forward. Anybody else? Well, let's continue to mull over that. If you have any questions, I'm sure David and Dr. Morrison or some of the budget committee would be glad to try to help on that. Treasurer's report.
All right, I'm gonna give you a little rundown, some things that's happened over the last month and kind of put out some dates for everybody on their calendar. Summer graduation will be on August 11th at 10 a.m. in the Cardinal Gym. Also, we're reminding the Board of Trustees, the HCC conference, October 9th through the 12th. If you're interested in attending, please contact Norma. Also keep on your calendar, PBCC special board meeting on August 9th at 6 p.m. and our regular board meeting will be on August 28th at 7:30. Kind of give you some exciting news over this last weekend and an earlier date. We finished up our 2 flight schools. It's our student orientation and had a Top Gun theme. Students did a great job on putting on some performances, entertaining the incoming freshmen and their parents. We had a record number of 481 students and parents participated over the 2 days of orientation. Heard a lot of feedback from the parents. I worked the cafeteria line, so I got a chance to interact with the parents and the students during that, and also bagged some clothing in the bookstore. We had a packed bookstore of parents buying gear and their TDCC swag, and a lot of positive feedback on the day of the tours and the information they received at the college. So, but it was a record enrollment, so that's now a challenge to Dr. Parnell and Courtney to break the record next year and possibly add more days. But I really think the students and the parents saw a lot of benefit in learning about the different services on campus, finalize some enrollment processes. And it was great impact on especially students that had younger siblings who were there, kind of started planning in their mind about this being in their future. I want to give some recognition to some of our student athletic groups. First, we're going to start with our softball team. They were recognized as the NJCAA All Academic Team of the Year of all 2-year colleges in the country. They were recognized as the Team of the Year with a GPA of 3.82. So congratulations to Coach Ratliff and that accomplishment. Also want to recognize our volleyball team and Coach Aaliyah Hay. They were recognized as a top All-American academic team, top 10, GPA 3.72, and they were the top Region 14 team. And they were also recognized by the American Coaches Volleyball Association and the United States Marine Corps Academic Award. And then, coming off of finishing 8th in the country and to be one of the top academic schools, that's a great accomplishment. Then I want to give what I call a chirp out to, when we talk about our people. The basketball team, women's basketball team, and Coach Precious Ivy, they led the Region 14 as the top academic team with a GPA of 3.48. And of course, that's coming off of finishing runner-up in the nation. So not only to be the second best team in the country, but be one of the top academic teams in the country. I want to give a chirp out to Imani Jenkins. She's been participating in the JUCO All-Star Games, and right now she's averaging 18.5 points a game and 11 rebounds, and that's at the top 40 junior college players in the country. So that's a great accomplishment for that young lady. Then I want to give a chirp out to Deborah Earhart and Angel Ellis. They were presented at the 2023 Symposium of Learning Frameworks as being course leaders in Texas community colleges. Congratulations to them being recognized and asked to present. Then, of course, our own Dr. Spazzeri presented at the TAC conference last week in Austin to talk about the implementation of House Bill 8 coming from a chief academic officer. So congratulations for that recognition among her peers. And I also want to recognize Courtney Skiles from our Director of Enrollment. She was recognized at the Element 451 conference as the Captain of the Year Award and also the Engagement Award for supporting students and innovation. And she was also featured on a nationally produced podcast called EdUp. Having been on that podcast and going to be on that podcast again in a couple of weeks, it's basically a selection of leaders across the country and kind of getting insight on their perspectives in their offices and roles that they play on their college campus in advancing student learning. So congratulations, Courtney, for that. Before we get to the enrollment update that's going to be provided by Dr. Parnell, the TAC conference that Kristen and David I participated and Miss Kelly Townsend was there as well. Last week was kind of a rundown on the implementation of House Bill 8, kind of the inner workings of how the formula was created, opportunities for institutions, that really focused a lot on the FAST program, which is the dual enrollment program with our area ISDs. And this afternoon, we met as a group and we have a plan that we'll be presenting to our regional ISD meeting on Thursday on how TVCC is going to implement that program and opportunities it will create for students as well. So before we get to Philip and a look at the fall enrollment numbers, does anyone have any questions about what's going on at TVCC? Well, I want to say one last thing. We did have a total of 18 first team all academic, and that means you have a four-point GPA. So with 18 members of our basketball, softball, football, volleyball were recognized for that. We had 9 members of the second team, and that means you have a 3.8 through 3.99. And we had 15 members of the third team, all academic, and that's for students that have a 3.6 to 3.79. So congratulations to all those students that represent us, not only in their playing field or courts, but also in the classroom. And now I'll take questions. A big Philip on enrollment if we're ready.
All right, thank you, Dr. Morrison. Dr. Parnell?
Yes, sir. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I love what Dr. Morrison just did with all those academic all-stars. It just proves what we've been saying is we don't recruit just athletes, we recruit good students and good citizens too. And so we've got a wonderful set of coaches right now. We've got a wonderful set of athletes from last year, and we're doing the same thing this year. This enrollment report will be a little bit different because we're going to start it with kind of what we've done before and show you some things as far as the fall and summer enrollment is concerned. And we're going to end it with what we're hoping to be able to show you on a regular basis. A couple of people to thank for this report here and for the one I'll show you in a second. I want to thank Jason Hansen from the IT department. And I want to thank Tammy Denny for working on all of those hundreds of reports, I think it feels like, so that we can get you better data. And I also want to thank Mr. Gibson there for bringing us Power BI, because it's really making a difference in what we can show you. And again, this will be on the second part of what I'm going to show you. But this first part, sort of like old hat, we're going to show you what the fall enrollment is as of July 19th. And that number is 3664. We're pretty much on track with where we were last year. We've still got about 1/3 of our dual credit students that aren't showing up in this list. We've got a number of people. We know we have a huge number of students that enroll in that regular class here right at the last minute between now and when school starts. And we'll also have TJC numbers in there to add to this. So not TJC, TDCJ numbers to add into this. So we think we'll be close to, if not somewhat over where we were last fall. That's our projection at this point. Now, to show you a little bit of something new, can you go to the next piece here? Thank you. We were able to, for this particular discussion, divide those students in an unduplicated way by location. So what you're seeing here is if the students were all on the Athens campus, what those numbers are the students who only take classes on the Athens campus. So that's 100% unduplicated efforts on here. So that number there should equal that 3664. And you can see where we need to do some extensive work, and you can see where we're doing pretty well. And if you go on to the next piece of this, I will show you another way we looked at it. And these are duplicated numbers to show you how the numbers look different, because many of our students take classes in more than one location or in more than one mode. So you may have someone taking an online class who is sitting in Palestine. And in this particular graph, we're showing you all of those students that are taking courses from us in more than one mode. So that's why you see a higher number in these on this particular graph than you did the previous one. Questions on fall so far? Again, these aren't final numbers. They're just as of July 19th. So maybe they're almost a week old now, but we'll see those numbers go up between now and the start of school. Okay, if we could keep going, then I'll show you summer. These are more or less final numbers, and you can see they were also pulled on that 7/19, so the same day. And you can see the breakdown of how they shook out. We've got TDCJ in here for 12%. A very small number of summer students are international students, so 1%. We did have high school students here, 24%, and then the 63% were what we're for right now calling regular students. We're looking for a better word than that. Probably call them traditional students, or we'll find a better word than regular students. But those are the students that traditionally would come straight out of high school. And if we skip down a little more, one thing that I was unaware of until I started looking at this, we have additional enrollments that have come through this summer and are already registered for fall. And those are what we call continuing education. Oftentimes those are non-credit courses, but in looking at the list of courses that we had there, we found out that there were some courses that were listed that were actually 4-credit courses, and we have to figure out why those aren't coming up in our regular listing of who's enrolled in credit courses. So we'll be working on that moving forward as well. So you may see higher numbers as we separate the continuing ed numbers out in a better way. And so one more slide. This is what we're hoping that you're going to be able to see very shortly. And I know this is small, but this is what Power BI is able to do for us. It's able to take the existing data that we have for our enrollment within the colleague system and rearrange and rearrange and rearrange it in different formats so that we can look at, again, the number of students by location, residency status. You can see all the different things that we can look for. And this is not the end of that. There's many more things that we can be looking at through Power BI, and that's going to greatly improve the ability for you to see numbers from what's going on campus. Another big thing that we're going to have very soon is we're going to be able to use Element 451 to track the numbers and track all of our enrollment numbers prior to the student actually becoming a student. So you'll know how many contacts we've made out there. You'll know how many contacts turned into someone filling out an application, how many applications students started but didn't complete, how many applications they completed, but maybe they haven't registered yet. And we'll be able to track those, and we'll be able to actually intervene in those areas by having people reach out to those students who may not have finished an application and urge them to finish it and go ahead and register for classes. And so that'll be the first time we've been able to do that once Element 451 is fully operational. And that's my report on the numbers. Do you have any questions?
Philip, can we get a copy of these slides? Can you send that to us?
Absolutely. I'll send it. If Norm, if you don't mind, I'll send it to you and you can send it out to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Dr. Parnell. Next item is consider the minutes of the June 27th meeting. These minutes were sent out earlier in our packet. Do we hear any discussion or a motion to approve? Trustee Stone makes motion. Seconded by Trustee Henry. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. All right. Consider the business financial investment reports for May 2023.
Or just real quickly, I wanted to point out a couple of things in your financials. Most of our revenue, we on housing, food service and bookstore, we've already, at least as of June, met or exceeded our budgets. Tuition has not reached budget. I think we talked about, as far as meeting our budget for revenue, things remain flat there. I do want to point out under other sources, in case you were wondering, we didn't get any new sources of revenue necessarily. The $987,000 from Tillman property sale, that did hit as a gain on sale. And I'll point out down below where it went back out to foundation. And I scroll down to M&O. You look under other expenses, that was the $1,016,000 you see in June. That was the donation that the college made per the agreement to the foundation for that endowed money. We can go to the cash. And on page 2. I want to point out one thing that I guess it's the first time since we've been here, capital reserve went over $30 million. And I'll talk about the investments in a minute. I just wanted to point that out on the cash. We're still in a pretty good cash position. This time of year as most of our revenues come in. You'll see the excess, as I should have pointed out on the first page, we're about 13 million revenue over expense. It drops to 10 in June. On the investment report, next page, I'll point out a couple of things. We've been, as the board's aware, we got some better rates. You'll see here that we have put in at least the cap reserve $5 million into the money market account at Texas Bank and Trust. We've been in the process of moving our CDs to Simmons Bank. They had a little trouble kind of getting things geared up in May. We had a little bit of transition with people changing chairs, so we kept having to send them new signed forms with new people. But I think in June you will see several CDs at Simmons Bank at 4.8%. And we've done the same thing with the foundation.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Simmons Bank, what rate?
I think what the first one I took out, I think was 6 months at 4.8.
They're advertising 5 too.
Well, I know it took them so long. And I will say, when I switched over to the foundation in June, they did quote 5.1. And I talked to Wade about that a little bit because I didn't want the money sitting in a holding pen for as long as it sat there, but they only do the Cedars on Wednesdays. But it took the better part of May to get that done, so we're gonna have a conversation about that. Anyway. So anyway, I just want y'all to know that that has been processed. On the cap reserve sheet, next page, I want to point out a couple things other than the $30 million. Down at the bottom, Jennifer is listing for y'all, make sure we're on the same page, the projects that are under, if the board is authorized being paid out of capital projects. And right now, that's the Palestine multipurpose TDCJ building and Dorm Fire Strength. And I just point that out because I wanted y'all to be aware that if you ever see something that you think, David, what are you talking about? We didn't authorize that. Please say something. Hopefully we won't miss something that bad, but I just wanted y'all to be aware that that's on there, so you can have that. And last page are the payments over 25,000. I'll open up and see if anybody has questions. Most of it is payroll and renewals and things of that nature. Well, that's all I have.
Thank you, David. I hear a motion to approve the business financial investment report for May 2023. Trustee Mike, thank you. Consider and discuss vehicle purchases.
Okay, boy. In May, we advertised for vehicles for this current year. And I want to preface this by saying it's another one of those things where supply chain issues, I think, are coming back to bite us. Apparently, most of the dealerships don't have hardly anything on the lot. We sent out bids to 23 dealerships in addition to putting it in the paper. We got one bid from, it is a local vendor, Branson Ford. We had bids, as you see at the bottom of the page, from one of the co-ops, as we always do. All three of those vehicles have been sold out from others. You know, complying with the state bid laws, these vehicles now are like buying electricity or gas. They're not there, and if they are there, they're going to be gone. So here's kind of what we're faced with. We have a local vendor who submitted a bid in good faith. Their bid is build to order. And I'm okay with that if the board would allow me to take that money out of contingency, because I don't think this vehicle, we don't have a date yet, since we hadn't had this meeting. I feel certain it's going to be after the end of the fiscal year. Our intent is with our next year's purchase to start this in September. If the board would like to proceed with this purchase from the local vendor, we believe that we can receive this order in the next fiscal year, take that out of contingency, be about $70-something thousand. On next year's allotment in the budget, we will probably put in there, that we will accept build order. Because what we're hearing from the dealerships, and Leon's talked to a lot of them, everything on the lot's already sold. And this is the way, and Tyler Junior College is having the same problem. If you want one, they'll order it for you. So that may be the way we have to conduct the bid, and just expect that, we're going to get it several months later. But I will say that I'm perfectly happy. The prices are a little higher, but 23 dealerships plus everybody that read the paper had a chance to bid. I don't think they've got enough on the lot. We didn't get anything else sealed bids. So we can award it to Branson Ford, and then we'll deal with the budget impact whenever they come in. And that would be my recommendation, unless the board would prefer to put it off. I don't know that prices are going to go any lower, and the availability really hasn't improved since the beginning of this year. I don't know how much it's going to improve in September when we intend to kick it off. Any thoughts?
Is I just got a question, is 2023 Chevrolet Trailblazer LT, is it comparable in the Ford Explorer or a little, is it a upgrade from that or is it not?
Which one was matching now?
I-
Escape. The Escape is similar to the Trailblazer,
Yes,
and the Explorer would be like the Traverse, right?
yes.
Okay. Any discussions from the board? Do I hear a motion to approve the purchase?
Question. We voting on all 5 of these?
Just,
Just the two.
just the
Just the
two
two
from Branson.
Yeah, the other thing, they sold out from under, we were only gonna buy either or. The ones that they sold at the bottom, those were the other bids from the co-op.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I should have pointed out, needless to say, they're not holding here. So,
You've asked for 3 vehicles, though, but they're only supplying 2.
that's all they're quoted. And we have a budget of 85, this is 71, but I mean, I'd be thankful to get those two at this point.
I have another question. What's the urgency on the need?
Well, we had skipped a year buying any vehicles. We've got some that are getting pretty good miles on them. And we, during COVID, and then we skipped a year, I believe, when we bought the 2 buses based on cost. I think the urgency would be that we're not gonna get these immediately anyway.
That was my next question. How long will it take for them to?
We don't have a lead time from Princeton. I mean, we're here at, what, Leon, 2 months to,
Making 3 to 4 months.
yes. And so, you know, if we deferred it to September and did this along with the others, we obviously would get them all later. But I can't tell you that what the prices would be higher or lower. Or that Princeton would even bid again.
Any further discussion? Hear a motion to approve? Stone, my motion to approve, your second,
I'll second.
second, Clayton, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Ayes have it. All right, consider and discuss personnel matters.
Just asking the board to review and approve all resignations, retirements, and new hires.
Their motion to approve personnel update.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
On Charlie's behalf, I'm sorry.
Seconded by Trustee Day. Thank y'all.